everybody, and welcome to Sonic Talk, episode 504, recording today live on Wednesday, the 6th of September. Gosh, where did summer go, eh? Perhaps if you're not aware of the Sonic Talk podcast, we talk about music technology, we talk about anything to do with that kind of stuff, so please do stay tuned. You can watch all of our things on YouTube. We do product reviews, we do interviews, we do all kinds of stuff, so please do subscribe to the Sonicstate YouTube channel, and you can also watch this on sonicstate.com/live, where there's an IRC chat room, which I can bring up here. There's the people in the chat room, and we've also got, we could bring in the YouTubers as well. I've made this really rather pleasant screen layout, so we can bring both of the chatties in there as we see fit. So we'll start. I may as well start with Steve Hillier. We've got a new guest in the fourth, Steve Hillier, who is you may remember Steve from Dubstar days, where he was in one of those kind of popular beat combos, and also lots of production, music work, and music educationalist, and all kinds of stuff related to music and music technology. Steve, is that a fair way of saying it?
Yes, I think that is, and rather flattering as well. Really excited to be here, and thanks for having me, Nick.
You're more than welcome. More than welcome. Pleasure to have you. If you want to see what Steve does, stevehillier.net is the place to go. That's where you can find out he's one of those people who actually does keep his website up together, right? Where you get current information on it, unlike the rest of us mainly. Although, Charles, I think you probably do as well, to be fair. So I'll also say hello to Charles Chicky Reeves, because let's see, what number are you on? No, that's Dave. Charles Chicky Reeves, back from touring in the States, where he's been on with on the road with Howard Jones. Yeah, for how long? Doing sort of arena gigs? Is that the sort of thing?
Yeah, arena and theater gigs. We did I think 27 shows in 30 days, something like that. It's crazy. It was really crazy tour schedule. Very, very busy. You know, we do like a 7-day run and then have a travel day, and another 7-day run and have a travel day. Yeah, so it's been very busy the whole time. But now I'm back. I'm back for about a month, and then I go back to New York for one show over there with him. Then I come back here, and then I start the OMD tour for about a month and a half.
Wow, so busy time for you. Yeah, are you managing to slip in a few jobs in the meantime, or are you just sort of chilling and taking it easy?
I'm right now. I'm focused on mastering the Chicky and Coco record, and then doing a couple of remixes, because Chicky and Coco is the other project I'm involved in, and so I'm mastering that record, then doing a couple of remixes, and then I'll be ready to go on tour again and hopefully do some more stuff when I get back. So I'm not really fitting in too much work in the meantime, other than my own personal stuff. So,
oh well, taking it easy relatively. Excellent. Yeah, exactly. And we also have Mr. Dave Spears, who we haven't had for a little while, with a slightly new Vista. Dave Spears, of course, GForceSoftware.com, makers of fine software, musical instruments, and the such like. Very pleased to have you aboard, Dave, as ever. Oops, no, that's Dave. There. So, yes, thank you very much for joining us. Anyway, Dave, sorry, I interrupted you. You were frozen there, but thank you very much for joining us. And I'll try and figure out how to edit this lot together in a bit. But Dave Spears, G4 Software, with, is that a 2600? What's the one below the Mini Moog? What's that keyboard there?
That's a Logan Vocalist.
Now, that is something I've never heard of.
No, it's pretty rare. It's pretty rare.
Does it sing like a vocalist, or is it a vocoder?
No, it's not a vocoder. It's a kind of formant filter synth. So you've got a kind of tenor and an alto and a solo section. It's interesting. I was doing some work on it, and I suddenly went, it's a semitone out of tune. So there's there's a pitch, hence the screwdriver. There's a pitch thing here, which I was mucking around with, and it's still a semitone out of tune. So I think the voltage has got to be cranked up on the inside a little bit.
It's the sample rate's off, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's brilliant, because there's a little thing called impedance, which actually should be just renamed impedance.
Impeding progress. Yeah, nice. Well, and thank you, Dave. We also got Mr. Gaz Williams there, bass player, producer, music technologist, with what looks like a stylophone in the room with him. There he goes.
So this,
Is that the brand? Is that the brand new Stylophone?
yeah, it's called the Gen X1, and it's sort of well, I got my old Stylophone out for. It's yeah, a little bit bigger, but not much bigger. It's pretty decent actually. It's a proper analog synth, and it's got a switchable LFO between triangle, so switch a delay, an analog delay.
Whoa! That's loud. So it's like a monotron, effectively, similar sort of thing to a monotron.
Much more featured than the monotron actually, and because it's got an envelope, it's got a delay section, it's got a filter section, and an LFO section, and then on the side, you'll be pleased to know there is a pulse width modulation switch that the LFO feeds. So actually, I can play that. Whoops. Let's take
Whoops.
that
Yeah.
So it's like a competitor to the Volcas.
Yeah.
I think it's and it's going to be
with more features.
Similar features, I would say, but it hasn't got a sequencer on there, so it's but it's got a speaker in there, and it is a battery-powered object. Put the pulse width in.
Not feeling the pulse of love there too much, but so you've got that. Are you looking into this then? Is this your latest squeeze, as it were?
Yes, so there will be a review, hopefully on Sonic very soon of it, and I think so far so good. I think it's pretty cool, and yeah, so it's going to be £60, $70, I think.
Wow,
So,
that is affordable, isn't it?
And it's proper. It's good.
Price of a big night
endorsed
out.
by Rolf Harris.
Yeah, no, probably not anymore. No. Anyway, Gaz, thank you very much for joining us. Right, I suppose we should probably get on and cover a few topics. Obviously, the first is news of the fabulous Walter Becker, guitarist and bass player with the Steely Dan. I got a little video clip here, rather unfortunately introduced by Bill Cosby, but we'll gloss over that. So this is one of the classic Reeling in the Years. I don't think that's him, is it? That's somebody else playing guitar. Right. But yeah, very, very. I won't go on because we'll probably get busted by the YouTube police. But
I think
very
he played
sad
bass on that one. I think.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, he started out playing bass as far as I understand. But Steely Dan, it's an interesting one. It really divides people because it was a soundtrack to a certain part of my life, but for some people, it's just a little bit too jazzy. I know Mark Tinley is not a fan of those big, those chords, and that is the epitome for him. But I mean, I know for a lot of people, probably for you guys, I mean, he's a bit of a giant figure in the world of kind of music, right? Sad day.
Yeah. Oh, gutted. I mean, he is amazing. I'm a huge fan. And, obviously, Donald Fagen is the more kind of known out of the duo of Becker and Fagen, of course. But, because Walter Becker, he only ever sung on one Steely Dan song, and that's Slang of Ages off what's now the last Steely Dan album, Everything Must Go. But I really like his voice. He's done 2 solo albums as well, Circus Money and 11-track Whack, which is a cool album. I love that album. But what a funny guy, like a comedian, really, brilliant. And I think the thing about Steely Dan, I think that's really important, is the fact that it was the dynamic of these 2 people working together, and in a kind of quite egoless way in many ways, because Donald would generally be on everything because of his voice, but Walter wouldn't necessarily play on the songs, so there were quite a lot of songs from certainly that latter period of the first time around in the 70s where Walter was there obviously as the writer and as the kind of half of the brains of the unit, but he wouldn't actually play on the records themselves. They would get he was a bass player, but quite often would think get Chuck Rainey in, or someone like that, or Will Lee, or to do parts. Actually, I don't think Will Lee played on Dan. He played on Donald Fagen stuff. But certainly Chuck Rainey, they'd get Chuck Rainey in rather than playing on it himself, which I think takes quite big cojones to do that. And really sad though for me though, because I've been a huge fan since I was about 15, and Walter, R.I.P.
Sad day. I'm going to go to you, Dave, because I'm fairly sure that maybe Asia or Aja, I don't know how you pronounce it, the Bernard Purdie days, where reputedly that was where the kind of the Bernard Shuffle and those kind of highly crafted studio albums, they kind of started. They were in that kind of tranche of artists that just really kind of pushed the envelope there, right?
Yeah, I was really lucky. My uncle, who's still a gigging musician, introduced me to him when I was pretty young. So I'd got into, I was into their stuff, quite early. He introduced me to some amazing artists. And of course, at the time I was a wannabe drummer. So, and at the same time, there was a prog drummer, a well-known prog drummer in our local village. He kind of taken me under his wing and who kind of introduced me to, people like Tony Williams drumming and Airto Moreira percussion player and Bernard Purdie and obviously Steve Gadd and stuff like that. And I used to occasionally go gigs with him, and we'd stand side stage and watch these people play, and the VU meters would just be hitting exactly the same spot every time. And he's like, that's a craft. And I think that really summed up their records. It's brilliant. I was a motorcycle fanatic, so I had an open face crash helmet and a mono cassette deck, and I loved that mad guitar, the talk box thing in Haitian Divorce. And it was just the right frequency that I'd ripped out the side of the padding, which wasn't a good idea on the crash helmet, so I could wedge these headphones underneath. And then I had this mono tape deck that I kind of stuffed under my jacket, and I could kind of rewind it whilst being on the bike and replay it. And that frequency of that talk box thing was just the right frequency to
cut through the bike.
Against a motorcycle engine, you'd still get the kind of goosebumps. But yeah, amazing. And I mean, Becker was, that's the Moog chord, isn't it? They were the guy. I mean, it had been around for years, but they kind of gave it a name, which I adopted wholeheartedly and still do. It's basically, if you play like a C major triad, so you've got the C, the E, and the G, you just lob in the second, so that you're playing the D as well, and you're playing the C in the bass, and it's kind of jazzy, but without being jazzy. And I think that's kind of how they hit upon that chord in the first place. But I mean, Asia, all of those albums. I mean, I've read this thing the other day where somebody said, as part of the obituary, that most bands have like one or two classic albums. They had kind of 7 in a row that were just all amazing. And Asia, when you see that, there's that brilliant documentary on the making of Asia, and where they were kind of getting in all the session musos and trying them out and then erasing the takes and then getting somebody else in. I mean, the expense must have been mega. But when you see, people like Michael McDonald doing those really close harmonies in Peg, again, it's just all goosebump material for me. I kind of lost interest later on. I got into different stuff, and I had that album that came out in about 2000. That was probably the last one I bought. Yeah.
It's
funny.
funny.
And even then, they would just play these certain chord progressions, and again you'd be it would just melt me.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. I mean, it's definitely, it has a time, and there's that sort of classic kind of thing is like, if I hear another Steely Dan track being played or Donald Fagen track being played as they test the sound system in a room, it's kind of, it's just one too many. I know Steve Hillier, I'm not sure if they figured in your musical topography, but no. I mean, definitely big influences for a lot of people.
I suspect that's true. I'm afraid Steely Dan, they kind of hit a bit of a blind spot for me, which is no comment on them. It's more really a comment on myself. And I was looking into what this band had done, and this musician prior to the show, and I realised, much to my horror, that the only tune that I knew by Steely Dan was "Reeling in the Years," and I only knew it from Rob Brydon's annually retentive comedy show from the noughties. I don't know if anybody remembers that. And I kind of thought, maybe I shouldn't mention this on Sonic Talk.
Well, it's too late, mate.
But, yeah, but I do really like that tune, and I do appreciate that these guys have had a huge effect on probably a lot of the music that I've enjoyed. So a sad day.
Yeah, no, definitely. But as so often with these things, also, he's one of those fortunate guys who's left behind this kind of enormous legacy. So, Charles, I don't know if that's something, if it again features in your musical sort of reference points.
Oh, yeah. I have to say, as a also front of house engineer, I never use Steely Dan to test.
Okay, I just want to put that out.
Never do.
What do you use?
I think it is. It's actually I use stuff that I've done myself, that I've recorded myself, because I know what it's supposed to sound like. So I always test with my own music. But so I first got into Steely Dan. I bought the Gaucho record, thinking it was the new Marty Balin record. Marty Balin from Jefferson Airplane, or Starship rather. I was a kid. What did I know? But then I remember I used to put that LP on, and I had a pair of Panasonic thruster speakers. I'd sit on the floor and lie down between them with them aiming at my ears and just play it full blast, only getting up to turn the record over. And I absolutely loved that record. Asia, I got into really only about 5 years ago. And I mean, I think it's a great record too. The words are a little cheesy, especially on the song Asia, because it's kind of creepy actually in Asia. But yeah, I'm sorry. The whole thing about the angular banjos. I mean, and it's just kind of this Asia file sort of stuff, which I find a little strange. But I do love that record, and the making of documentary is really good too. And,
yeah, it's one of those classic. It is a classic studio album, isn't it? And I think that's one of those things. They've just got that kind of a milestone record, I suppose. I mean, that's and that's cool. That's really cool.
Can I quickly cut in? Just one of the things about Steely Dan, which is quite a lot of people can't stomach it, think it's too anodyne, too safe, or too slick, or too polished, or whatever. But their kind of counter to that was very much in the lyrics, and I think this is a really big
California sleaze, yeah.
Oh, unbelievable lyrics, really. I think, in fact, I would say they're my favorite lyrics in the whole canon of rock and roll, actually, to be fair. And why I particularly love it is that they would get in the most obtuse and bizarre and humorous stuff, and also the most twisted stuff. I mean, they would sing about kind of perverts, or sort of murderers, and all the kind of most sleaziest and darkest parts of life, but yet dress it with the most sophisticated. They kind of thought it was like a punk thing to do, to take this kind of very polished veneer and put just the most creepy, nasty and twisted lyrics. There are absolutely. And I think that's certainly the those two minds working together. And I think probably, well, actually, and you can see it in Donald Fagen's solo work, that without without Walter Becker's kind of mischievous mind at play, that they miss a little bit on the Donald. Although I love the Donald Fagen solo records too, but I mean, I think that's a big part of it. It's
very much of its time, but very skilled. I should also point out, I don't know if you've seen here, I've got the we finally had one of the Sonicstate T-shirts coming, which you can now buy if you just go to sonicstate.com. There's links all over the place. There it is. This is the Keys and Wires design from Jason Mastrandrea. Just wanted to plug that because I only plugged it at the end of the show last time, so I'm hoping that while we've still got some listeners, viewers, I'm going to get it in there.
Your sex appeal's gone through the roof wearing that T-shirt. Do you think it'd do the same for me if I wore one?
I would imagine so. I haven't left the building. It only arrived today, so I haven't left the building. I haven't tested it out in the wild yet to see exactly how much it improves your attractiveness to a whole kind of gamut of individuals. But anyway, right, let's have another quick one here. Actually, no, what we'll do is we'll do the first ad slot because we've got a number of topics to get through. So let's start with this guy. As you know, iZotope very kindly sponsor the show with a prize every week, and this is RX6. RX6, of course, is the sort of de facto music audio restoration and fixing suite. It comes in 2 flavors. There's a music production one we're looking at, things like denoise, dehum, declip, spectral de-esser. What's the one that I was really using the other day? I forget now. Oh yeah, there's de-breath and de-click, things for really cleaning up vocals, which in today's productions are the sort of thing that you used to have to do really forensically, and now you can do a hell of a lot of that, deplosive as well, just from within a single suite of plugins. Very well worth checking out. If you work with audio in any way and you need to kind of make sure that even though the take was great, there might have been something technically at issue, very often it gets you out of a deep hole. Really, really useful. So we thoroughly recommend you check out iZotope. iZotope.com/RX6 is the place to check that out. And of course, we have a competition. Last week, we asked you to tweet out the hashtag, what was it? Repair and restore to RX6, blah, blah, blah. Last week's winner is a guy called Dennis Demantz on the Twitter handle TENIS tennisdcom. TENISDcom. He's the winner, or she's the winner. It could be a Denise rather than a Dennis. If you want to get in touch, Denise or Dennis, you will have a full copy of iZotope RX6 music production bundle, and you just have to get in touch. And of course, we do have a competition this week. Oh, that's interesting. I don't seem to have actually the screen up there. Let me just have a look at that. That's awesome. Isn't it great when that happens? I'll tell you what it is while I try and fix that. RX6 is, you need to tweet the hashtag vocal repairs. So that's one word, the hashtag vocal repairs, and the hashtag RX6 to @Sonicstate and @iZotope Inc. So the hashtag RX6 and the hashtag vocal repairs to RX to @Sonicstate and @iZotope Inc. There we go. That's brilliant, isn't it? I love it when things start falling apart. Because I had to reboot the whole thing. But we do, again, as we say, we really do appreciate iZotope supporting the show, and it's very much appreciated. Did I say appreciate enough times? I think I probably did. Right, let's get on to this video. This is the new Moog Subsequent 37, which is kind of the later, the next incarnation of the Sub 37, which in my opinion is one of Moog's real classic synthesizers of recent times. This is the excellent Corey Henry doing his thing.
In the spirit
and they've changed kind of the headroom.
Designed the Subsequent 37, an upgraded synthesizer that retains the magic of its predecessor while giving artists a wider range of sounds.
I'm not going to play the whole thing, but it's a really interesting video where they go through the kind of the nitty gritty of what they've done. But essentially, if I can take it as a sort of potted thing, they've taken the drive and the head of the original Sub 37, which had this multi-drive, and the fact that everything would get really hot into the filters and the VCA. The problem was with it, if there was one indeed, is it's actually quite hard to make it clean, particularly if you're playing duophonically. So with the Subsequent 37, amongst other things, they've increased that headroom. So you, as I think he says, they've enhanced the clean vocabulary of the synthesizer. Now, and I don't know how everybody feels about the Sub 37 itself. I think, Dave, you've got one, haven't you? Did you get one or try one?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah, I've got one.
Good synth, right?
Yeah, and I love it in duophonic mode. In fact, I've been playing it recently in that, up against the modular, and it sits really, really well. In fact, I had a Sonic Talk listener come and see me. A guy called Scott. So hello, Scott, if you listen. And he was like, "Wow, this is cool." You know, in the room full of madness, there was a little 37. So yeah, I like that. I thought this was kind of interesting, particularly about the mixer section. That was one of the big criticisms, I think, of the Voyager, wasn't it? That the mixer section just didn't have that same headroom. I know a few people who had them had kind of whinged to me about it, at least. But yeah, no, I like it. It's a great controller keyboard as well. It's a bit weird, this name, though, isn't it? Subsequent 37.
Yeah, well, I suppose it's sort of subsequent.
The irrelevant
coming
36.
after. Yeah, that's an interest. Very creative, I suppose. Steve, I don't know whether you're a Moog guy or whether you've experienced the Sub.
Yeah, I have been in the past, and I do agree with both of you. I think it's a beautiful instrument, and it's certainly a modern classic, at least from Moog. But the thing that put me off was just how, as you were saying, Nick, it's how hot the oscillators were running into the filter. It was giving that kind of saturated sound that, quite frankly, it is not the sort of thing that I would do. And of course, as you, when you're playing, paraphonically, you can end up in a whole world of trouble and just notes sort of making a bit of a mush. So the fact that they've adjusted that and given the filter stage a lot more headroom, I think that's certainly, in some ways it's going to appeal to me. But I do feel, I think there's only going to be 2,000 of these made. Is that correct?
Oh, is that right? I thought it was replacing the Sub 37. I did. Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a limited run.
Oh,
yeah. And see, as a consequence of that, I think I'm going to leave it. I know this is going to sound maybe overly magnanimous, but I don't think I'm a big enough fan of this instrument to deprive the world of one of the 2,000s that's going to be out there, if you know what I mean. And I'd much rather that somebody who would play it and love it would use it rather than me, who probably would look at it a lot, if you know what I mean. So,
I wondered about this because you were probably a very similar route to music as I was, which was kind of perhaps Atari and samplers, 8-bit samplers and stuff. And I always shied away from those big synths because they sounded so much better than any of the other stuff I had. It was sort of really difficult to fit it in. You ended up having to kind of EQ them within an inch of their life just to fit them into your sort of really dodgy mix. I don't know. I'm sure your mixing skills are much better than mine, but did you find the same sort of thing with those kind of big electronic instruments?
I definitely did. And in fact, one instrument I was looking at actually playing earlier today, the Roland JP8000. I don't know if you guys remember that. I used to use it throughout the 90s and I still use it a lot now. But the moment you put a proper analog synth next to it in the mix, the JP8000 sort of disappears. It doesn't hold. It explains why so many sort of trance tunes, particularly from the early noughties, that everyone used to turn up the treble control on the JP8000 just to make it sleep out in the mix. So yeah, I when I was using samplers like the Roland W30 and S760, it was very difficult to get big sounding analog synths like my Korg Monopoly to sit with it. And so in a way, I suppose the habit has survived with me until this day, and I try and avoid anything that's too big sounding. Although having said that, just right next to me right now is a Korg MS-20 that I use on pretty much everything, which is a great instrument. I think it probably would fulfill a lot of the role that a Subsequent 37 would otherwise fulfill for me, so I think I'll stick with that.
Well, that's a fair enough comment, I suppose. Yeah, no, I get that. And I think it's important to know an instrument really well as well. I know not Charles, that's Gaz. Charles, I don't know whether or not you, I see you've got a Matrix Brute there, so that's kind of probably blown your budget for the Subsequent 37 possibly. So is this something that you've come across? I mean, I don't know if you use the Sub 37 at all or whether you might have had it kind of from front of house point of view.
No, I haven't. I've played with it. I haven't used it. I may be one of the few people in the world that Moog stuff doesn't completely appeal to. I mean, I have a Mother 32, and I think it's fine. I love it. I do like synths that are kind of dirty sounding and everything. But I'm very slow in pursuing getting any of their other keyboards. I don't know why. I mean, I think they're really some of the best made, but I just
you haven't found the fit. Yeah, no, it's interesting. No. I mean, the one thing I would say about the Sub 37 interface, it's a really great performance instrument. It's just everything is beautifully designed from a kind of playing and tweaking at the same time, and that's something that I think is a really big deal. I don't know, Gaz. I remember you've got a great fondness for the Mini, which is a separate thing entirely. But I mean, have you played with my sub? Or we've done a couple of jams with it. It definitely has a sort of thing about it, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, no, it's brilliant, and I have been craving one quite a lot. So I'm kind of interested in the Subsequent one. I'm kind of keen to find out if they've made the sequence, because the sequencer on the Sub 37 was added almost as an afterthought, wasn't it? So I wonder if the new Subsequent Sub-37 has got a little bit more easier legibility for the sequencer aspect of it, because it's quite a clever sequencer in the Sub-37, isn't it? In terms of you can do quite a lot of cool little stuff, but the legend of on the Sub-37 doesn't really show any sequencer stuff particularly, does it? I don't think.
Not so much. I mean, it's definitely kind of played up, but it's again, it's I think Amos Gaines is kind of one of the big brains behind that whole kind of the firmware side of it, and it is really, I suppose for me, the thing about I find about Moogs, I'm just getting a little bit kind of over the 24 dB ladder filter. I mean, I just reviewed the boutique SEO2, which has the classic kind of Moog ladder filter, and you're kind of doing stuff and it sounds beautiful, and then you introduce the resonance and all the balls drop out of it unless you're driving it hard. You get those lovely harmonics, but there's just so little bottom end. And I think as a characteristic, because it doesn't have a multi-mode, it has multi-pole filters, which I think is great, and that really does help a lot. But just the straight 4-pole 24 dB classic ladder, I'm kind of over it, really. I'd rather have a 2-pole pretty much. I don't know how you feel about that, Steve. Have you got what's your favourite filter?
Yes. No, I completely agree. And I do wonder whether maybe a lot of not a lot, but let's say some of the fetish for this style of filter was due to the fact that there wasn't really a way of getting that sound for a very long time unless you actually had an original Moog. There was no, I think, software recreation of it that I really think stood any real examination. But since the mid-noughties and onwards, there's been so many new Moogs and other people using that circuitry, and also the software emulations have become so good. I think, for me at least, the novelty is kind of worn off, and I completely agree with what you're saying about the resonance characteristics. And I do tend to find that if you're one of the main reasons that I would even consider using a Moog would be for the bass, but the fact that when you dial up the resonance, you lose a lot of the bass kind of, I don't know, it sort of negates its purpose for me. And by comparison, I know I mentioned the MS-20 that's just here earlier. You can really crank the resonance on both of the filters here and still have something highly serviceable for the bottom end. So yeah, I've got to admit, I think I'm probably over it as well.
Oh, well, maybe there's news. There might be, who knows? There's been rumours for ages that there's going to be something new coming out. And I mean, we suspect it's probably going to be a poly, isn't it? Because that's the one that everybody right from the beginning has been saying, yeah, poly. And I've seen, there's been a couple of demos with the Behringer D, actually, the guy, Synth Pro, and I'm really starting to have a hankering for a multi. Dave, have you got a poly Moog? No. What's the problem? What's the problem?
The problem is that they got they're usually live for about 20 minutes before they need repairing again. That's always the problem. Okay. I got a fantastic bit of footage of Alan Perlman telling me about how to analyze the electronics of the Poly Moog. He's just kind of going, why did they do that? Why did they do that? Brilliant sound. Used one on occasion, and then you go back to it, and it's gone again. So no. That also memory Moog. The power supplies on memory Moogs used to crap out quite a lot. So that was always, like I said before, I always wanted a memory Moog, but I didn't want a memory Moog.
Yeah.
So things like the SEO2 look like a kind of alternative. You see, I'm not over this 24 dB ladder filter because I think it's horses for courses. But I do understand. In fact, it's one of the reasons why I love the Oscar filter so much, because by introducing that drive, you can crank that res, and the way that the Oscar filter is so unique, you can crank that res and it just doesn't lose any of that bottom end nastiness. It's a thing. Whereas with the Mini, it's like, particularly with sequences, I mean, for bass lines, brilliant. Just keep the res down. Don't be an idiot. Just keep the res down and play it. But for sequence lines, you start introducing a little bit of resonance, and it's like, whoa, where's that? Where's it gone? Where's it gone? Whereas the Oscar, no, doesn't happen. Unless you want it to, unless you want to back off that game.
Yeah. Oh, it's interesting though. I mean, anyway, it's available. I guess they're going to start shipping pretty soon. I think was it September, October? I forget now. It's going to be about 1,700 quid. So I'm guessing somewhere around the same price as dollar, because we're heading for parity, aren't we? With all that, which is a kind of weird, weird scenario. But that's another matter, isn't it? I'll just drop in. I'm going to change it up slightly and just drop in an ad for our own synth. So WaveJunction, our Max for Live synth. This is the 2 oscillator with wavetable synthesis, lots of different multi-waves. We've also got 3 multi-mode filters. There's 5 envelopes. It's got pulse width as well, I should add. 3 filters that you can route in series or parallel, and then stick another one on the end, which is actually quite good for sort of shaping a sound if you have a high pass at the end to drop on your bottom end off if you want. We've also got 5 LFOs, so 5 envelopes I did, and a 12-slot modulation matrix. Of course, it is a Max for Live device, and as such, you can only run it in Max for Live on Ableton. But if you're into this sort of thing, bit.ly/WaveJunction is where you need to go, and we've got a 10% discount code which you can use, which is WJTalk17. So if you go to bit.ly/WaveJunction and enter the code WJTalk17, then you will get additional 10% off, and you can buy that directly from us, help support the site, and all those things. Right, I'll leave it there. So here's another bit of news. If this is the right video, yeah, let's check this out. Whoa! So this is yes, yet more speculation. What would the world? Well, what would Sonicstate be without speculation? So. This is, of course, the D-50, some of the classic sounds. I forget which one that's called. Is that called...
Soundtrack.
Soundtrack, that's it. Which was also ported to some of the other LA synthesis. I think there was a version of that on the D110 as well. This is retrosound.de's demo. But the reason I'm mentioning this is because we've got the new, as happens in September, Roland have got their future redefined experience, and on the 9th of September they're going to experience the D50, and I think there's an image of the D50 and 30th anniversary apparently, and it's coming soon. So whether that means they're just going to have somebody demonstrating the D50 go, isn't it great, it's 30 years old, or they're going to be releasing some in some form or as a plug out or any of these things. I don't know which is which, but it's interesting because of all the synthesizers that tend to get released, there are probably tens of thousands of these out in the wild. So it's not a question of maybe not being able to get hold of them. It's whether it's going to have another spin on it. Now, I know, Dave, D50 was a big part of, a big milestone synth in your musical journey from bedroom to live and all of that sort of stuff. What do you think? What would you like to happen on the 9th of September?
I don't really have an opinion. It's kind of weird, isn't it? Because I did look at some of the speculation. It's like, well, is it a web thing? Will it be a web thing? Will it be a boutique? It would kind of make sense for the boutique thing. Yeah, it could be one of their rental things. I don't know. It's odd. I mean, the thing is, at the minute you can pick up, I've got a D50 and a 550. They rarely get turned on, although there's some times where you kind of go, that sound, and then you can go and kind of turn it on and find that sound. And in some ways, that's kind of testament to the presets, because I didn't really do a lot of editing, and that was another thing about this announcement. It's like, so if it's a software cloud thing or a web thing, if you want to edit it, dude, it wasn't the easiest thing to edit. Well, you had a D110. It's the same principle, that kind of sample and synthesis thing. With the waveforms, you needed that programmer in order to really extract the most out of it. So, yeah, I don't know. It'll be very interesting to see.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that either. I don't know. Sorry, was that Steve?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I've had a fair few D50s through the years, and they're a beautiful sounding machine. And I think, like Dave says, there are occasional moments where you're working on something and you go, oh yeah, that's where the D50 should fit in. But I know that the issue that I always had and still have with D50s was that it felt like the processor within the synthesizer wasn't really fast enough to do the jobs that you needed it to do. So, for example, there feels to me, and I don't know whether this has happened to anybody else, but with the D50s I've had, there seems to be some latency from pressing a key to getting a sound. It's only short, but it definitely feels like it's there. And so what I'm kind of hoping, if there is a newer version of D50 around, is that if you have a greater spec processor running this machine in some way, that first of all, that latency is gone, but it also enables you to do live changes to the sound, which just really wasn't possible even with the programmer, because you would move a fader on the PG 1000 and play some notes, and there would be instances where you would be waiting what felt like an age, and certainly way too long for music, for everything to catch up. So it was, as a machine, it was really limited in that way. And if Roland got round that, then there could be, I don't know, a whole world opening up with a D50. Just one other thing I would throw in: I didn't ever find a way to use the filter with the included samples. I seem to remember that the routing with the really short transient samples was away from the filter. Now, if they changed that, I know it would fundamentally change the nature of the synthesizer, but again, it would open up a new world of sonic possibilities. So I'm sort of quietly, excited.
I know, that's interesting. Maybe it'll be D50 Intel edition. It'll have an i7 in it or something. That would be.
Yeah, it was processors. I did speak to a Roland engineer, because there was a whole period where the MIDI, there was this lag, the MU stuff and all sorts of stuff. I did speak to one of the Roland engineers, and they said that it wasn't until the JD800, which is still used today, came along, there was a separate chip for the keyboard and the MIDI section from the synth engine, and that's why it suddenly everything felt dynamic and sped up. I don't know how true, whether I've remembered it completely accurately, but it does make sense.
That's interesting. Charles, is this have you got a D50 anywhere in your arsenal?
No, but I have a JD800 right there. And to me,
nice.
I don't need a D50 because the JD800 is fine. But you did ask Dave what he would like to happen on September 9th. What I want Roland to offer for free to fix all the faders and pots on my JD800 because I bought that thing. I bought it brand new. I mean, I bought it in, was it 90? Oh God, I'm showing my age. I bought it 90. Brand new. Or 90, yeah. It, like when it first came out, and oh God, I just thought of a really terrible story about my sort of accidentally insulting the salesman when he was playing like some sequence or something, and I go, those demo sequences, and he's like, no, this is a song I actually wrote. I'm like, but anyway, yeah, I do love that thing, and it is, for some things, especially for certain pads, it's really great, but I can't even breathe on the machine because suddenly one of the pots will just like catch up and trigger the sound to dramatically change. So I would never take it live. And I have taken it apart a few times and cleaned it out completely, and it'll sort of work for like a couple of months and then it falls apart. But to answer the larger question, I don't really need a D50 because to me that's very close to it, and I'm fine with that. So.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I suppose, Gaz, it's sort of almost the soundtrack to the who was that massive ad agency that came up? Just Saatchi. It's the Saatchi and Saatchi synth, isn't it? It was.
Yeah. I mean, it's a weird one, this is, isn't it? Because the kind of romantic analog thing of the 1970s or whatever, or even into the early 80s, I don't know that it extends as much to this era as maybe Roland would like to think so. Now, I was also intrigued to see that, so on the analog modeling, what do they call it? The analog component modeling, they're calling it the DC. Is it, or they call it digital modeling of digital with this. I can't remember the term. So what's it? ACB, isn't it? So DCB, digital component modeling.
Modeling a really rubbish processor in better processor software.
Yeah. So yeah. So that's a bit strange. What I'm wondering about then, so we know that the D50 is available on the Roland Cloud, so there is a software version of it knocking around already available from Roland. So it isn't currently available as a plug out, so that could be the thing. But I think that would seem a little bit underwhelming for this launch. So I am thinking it is going to be a boutique. And I think that's quite well. If it is, will it? I mean, what are the kind of key performance features of the D-50? There was, what was that thing called? The chain, not the chain. There was a funny thing that made like a delay on the D-50.
Follows.
Yeah. So I'm wondering whether it'll have those kind of controls, and obviously the joystick and that kind of thing. But it's interesting. I'm just not sure that it will translate as well. I mean, this is entirely speculation, of course, but I think there isn't anything like it as a small little module, though, is there? I mean,
I suppose not. I mean, I should point out, Heliosphere in the chat room, it's gone past now, said maybe they're going to start thinking about doing iPad versions of their classic Sims, in much the same way that Moog has done to great effect. So I'm sure on an iPad it would probably run like a dream, and they could do all sorts of stuff with it. So that might be a possibility, and that kind of would make sense from a sort of expanding their user base thing. Although I think they have invested an awful lot in this whole cloud thing. It's a kind of collaborative thing with another company. I forget the name of the company. So I don't know whether that's going to be something they're going to push, or whether it'd be an iPad based thing. I don't know.
But it's interesting that I mean, isn't Eric Persing responsible for a lot of the D-50 sounds?
Yeah,
and a lot of those,
yeah.
Like, so I mean, what's the digital native dance? That's a classic one off the D-50, isn't it? And and it feels like in a way Omnisphere is the evolution of the D-50 in a way, in terms of those kind of
far
layers.
you could go from. Yeah, I suppose I see what you mean. Yeah, that kind of does make some sense. But as we say, you're going to have to wait till the 9th to experience the Roland D-50. As I said, I've got it up here, and I should plug some of the other days. The 7th, which is, when's that? That's tomorrow. Tomorrow is Wind Day. Tomorrow's Wind Day. Then Friday is Guitar Day. Saturday is the D-50 Day. Monday is Organ Day. 13th.
Every day's an organ day.
Every day's an organ day, yeah. And then drums and percussion day and piano day. So they're obviously going to be. It's an interesting whole, the way they do this. They sort of before you get to NAMM. And Gaz, I wanted to show you because I think this will work. James Condren via Facebook said, "Hi Gaz, my mate got a photo with you at Green Man Festival and thought you were Aidan Moffat from." What's that say? Arab Strap. There you go. I throw that in there for you.
I like it.
Anyway,
that's cool.
So yeah, D50. There we go. I mean, it remains to be seen. We've got. I'm just wondering whether I want to go for the knobs or the patch bay. I think I might go for this one actually. This is the PatchCAD software that I don't know if you're aware of. It runs on PC. I mean, many of us have struggled with our patch bay labels. I mean, it may sound like a dull sort of IT issue, but PatchCAD have created this really brilliant bit of software. Basically, it has a load of templates for all sorts of different types of patch bay and a kind of spreadsheet type interface. It's a tenner. It works on PC only, but allows you to basically create your own labels and templates and then print them out and stick them on your patch bays. And I know some people don't have patch bays, but I remember, for instance, myself spending lots of time trying to draw with a felt tip pen on the one label that would come with patch bays, messing it up, turning it over, getting it wrong again, and then having forever this sort of awful thing. Where do we stand on patch bay labels? I'm going to start with you, Steve Hillier. I don't even know if you have a patch bay of that nature, but I'm going to take a shot.
Yes, I do, and I would say I color code everything that I possibly can. I find it sounds a bit strange, but sometimes I get shapes and colors kind of mixed up, not confused, but there's a really strong association. So I tend to have all my outputs are red, inputs are green. And when I've had a CV patch bay, that kind of thing, there'd be grey and white, and that was really all I needed, just different shades of that to help me remember what was going where. So I'm up for this color coding.
Excellent. Okay, that sounds like a good one. Gaz, I've seen your studio. What's that? The what are they called? The
I think it's a brother one. Oops.
The brother label maker. Yeah. That's always a
That's
good one
it.
too.
Yeah, forced by Robbie Bronneman. Actually, Robbie has forced me into this, and have to label every single power supply as it arrives here, and that sort of thing, under Robbie's express kind of orders. Yes, and it is good to do. But these things are cheap, aren't they? I mean,
yeah, but you can't get the spacing right, because I've done that. I've done patch bays with those things, and I do a bit, I cut a bit, and then you stick it on, and cut another bit, and you stick it on. It's just it's a nightmare.
Yeah. It's not as good as that thing, I agree. But you can, with these things, they're pretty clever, though. You can adjust the font size and the width, and you can get them pretty small. I think they're quite good. They're only about, 25 quid, something like that.
I'm trying to look around, because Andy is a very habitual labeler. I'm just trying to see what something that he might have labelled. Oh, yeah, here we go. So, for instance, we use those so all of our cameras have got stickers on them, and they're all labelled up. So yeah, it works well for that. But yeah, I haven't really got anything else. I mean, that, because I'm using the X32, it all says what it is, so I don't have to worry about that so much. I know, Dave. Are you a labeler or a kind of color coder?
No, I'm a labeler. I've got a brother printer. Everything that comes in here, particularly power supplies, because
it's a nightmare.
America, Japan, UK, so it's got to be labelled 110 or 240 or whatever, which is why I was so gutted when I cut that wave station the other week, because that was the only IEC cable that didn't have 110 written on it. But what I found was, so the way we work is, obviously we've got submixers, the synths go to the submixers, and they come out into the main audio interface, and so I would really carefully and fastidiously label all of the mixer inputs and outputs and the fronts. It would be like, the Andromeda, okay, the 2600 and the Moog. And then somebody would come into the studio and go, I don't want to use those, I want to use this and that and the other. And then everything would end up getting kind of semi-repatched. And then my labels made no sense whatsoever after that. And after 3 or 4 times, I just thought, you know what? Life's too short. I'll just wing this every time, because generally you've got an idea. I label the cables and everything. Yeah, so I am a bit of a anal labeler.
That's I don't like the sound of that too much. That sounds that wasn't where I thought this topic was going, to be perfectly honest.
That's not a good name for the show.
No, I think that won't be the name of the show. Charles, you look like an organised man. You know, when you're playing live. I mean, importance live, you need stuff labelled. I mean, I guess with front of house desks, you're labelling the inputs on the channel. You don't have lots of tape and kind of Sharpies. Right. But where do you stand on this?
Well, courtesy of Robbie Bronneman, I also label everything with a label maker. But to the whole patch bay thing, I just use spreadsheet. And I just do trial and error. I'll like make a landscape printout, and I'll 1 through 24 or whatever the size of that particular patch bay is, and I'll print it out, come back in here, and I'll just like hold it up and just see if it measures right, and I'll keep adjusting until I get it just right. But I do color coding and I do labeling. But the tricky thing for me, and I think in that video I saw about that thing, which unfortunately is only PC, font is really important, because I'm not a particularly good reader, so I use a dyslexic font, which helps a bit. So I have all my patch bay in that, and most of the time when people see that, they're like, wow, those letters look really strange. And they have to be bottom heavy so I can see them, because otherwise it all becomes a jumbled mess for me. But I'm very much into labeling absolutely everything, including this laptop I'm talking on right now. It's even labeled as my laptop, just not to be confused with all the other laptops I take on tour with me. So yeah, I label everything. I think even my phone has a label on it. Yeah, it does. It has a label on it.
Actually, I think what you got. Oh, there's another one. Yeah.
Wow.
As I look around the room, labels are starting to kind of like come into focus. I'm realizing how many things are labeled in here. But I mean, because it is, certainly, certainly with front of house and with, like you're saying, with your studio, Dave, this place is in a state of constant flux. You got someone who comes in and they want A, B, C, D. They want this, that, or the other, and then suddenly it's like, oh, where's this, where's that? So we try and label, but we don't. We label in a way that means that we could just find stuff, and we use things like this a lot. So this really high-vis tape. So it's like, where's the remote? There it is. That kind of stuff is all used, because when the lights are off, you're just going, well, I don't know where that is. And then,
And for some reason in the audio world, they want to make everything black. I don't know why.
Well, so it doesn't
everything
show
seems to
up,
be
I
black.
suppose. So it's discreet. I don't know, discreet perhaps.
I did get an interesting tip the other day from somebody who had ran a similar kind of studio, and they said they don't label in terms of names synths. They have a number and then they have a list on the wall of what number is what synth. So that because of this constant replumbing, they can just go, oh, that's 1. Okay, that's such and such. I was kind of tempted to give that a bit of a go, but it sounds like the problem is that your label's going to be kind of that big, isn't it? And you're going to be looking for this little 1 or 2 or 10 or whatever.
Yeah, is that a 7 or is that hold on, is that a 9 or a 6?
Yeah.
Which way up is it? Yeah. Yeah, that kind of stuff. But labeling is important, folks. Sorry, who was that? Steve?
I just wanted to mention something. Just we're talking about labeling. It's a little habit that I got into some ago. But this is labeling within your computer. So if you're using a Mac, it's actually really easy to label files or a whole bunch of files and give them different colors. And I discovered a long time ago that, you know, sometimes if you do an upgrade or if you do like an operating system upgrade, things can change and your rig can fall down and you don't know what it is that's changed that's made your rig fall down. So a little tip I would just give out there to everyone is that if you have, if you know you're going to do like a big operating system upgrade, let's say you're going to go to High Sierra, before you do that, go to the extensions folder that you'll find in the library, in your home folder and also at the top level in the computer, and label just with one color everything that's in that library. Then do your upgrade and you can see what's changed, because then when Apple include their new software on what you put in, it won't be labeled.
Top tip. Like that. That's a good one.
I can tell you it saved me days of troubleshooting when you discover, just what's been changed by an upgrade. I really would recommend it.
Interesting. That's a good tip. Top tip. That Gaz, I think you're angling for something there.
No, I was just noticed that, like, everybody's got really amazing synths in their view, and I'm just a stylophone, and everyone's like got 2600.
Well, it's
these
just
these are cardboard. They don't actually work. They're just cardboard.
They could be, couldn't they? We did actually have this idea that what we would do is green screen. Or get printouts of like the front that you see in studio racks. So just get these 19-inch boxes and just stick big printouts of really tasty gear on it. So it looks like we've just got racks and racks of the stuff. And then you could just flip it over and it could be a kind of vintage EQ rack, or you flip it over and it'd be a rack of, I don't know, D110s or whatever you wanted it to be. But that idea didn't really fly.
That's sort of like what Ridley Scott was doing in Alien.
Sorry? Ridley Scott?
In Alien, Ridley Scott was like, if he wanted a vent, he'd just photocopy a picture of a vent, cut it out and just stick it up on the wall, and it looked like there was a vent on the wall, or just like it's because you're seeing everything 2D, so there's just no way you'd even know whether or not it's a real vent.
Excellent. It's the shop fitting school of set design. Yeah, I like the sound of that. That's a good one as well.
You saying about patch bays, Nick? I did actually get called into a studio that had recently been purchased and all this stuff had arrived, and it was like, I'm not getting anything out of this synth. And I was pointed to a patch bay. They'd been plumbing cables in and out, thinking it was some kind of modular synthesizer.
Nice.
Excellent.
Easy mistake to make. Easy mistake to make, I would imagine. Okay, well, I think that probably brings us to a close for the day, just because it's. I think what's happening is we've got 4 guests, which has been great, but I think it's just slightly taxing the my machine a little bit heavily. So I'm getting all these blinky lights. I'm just slightly nervous that it's going to be audio only at the end of it, but I'm sure it won't be. So I don't want to push my luck while it's still going, even though we did have a slight fall down in the middle of it. I think the live stream's all worked out. So I want to say thank you very much to everybody for joining us on. Just get another quick plug-in for the iZotope, because I can bring the screen up now. If you want to join, enter the iZotope competition, we're looking for the hashtag vocal repairs, that's one word, and the hashtag RX6 to @Sonicstate and @iZotope Inc. That's the hashtag vocal repairs and the hashtag RX6 to @Sonicstate and @iZotope Inc. And if you enter, we will pick a competition winner from from this week's entries for next week, and you will stand a chance of winning a full version of RX6, and also buy a T-shirt. We got these ones.
Hey!
And we've also got, hold on, I've got another one here. The classic logo as well, which we've got here. So you can buy mugs too, which are actually very fetching. I was hoping to have one of those to slurp out. Nice. I think that's isn't it? That's good. And then T-shirts in various colours with just a simple logo. We'll bring in a few more designs as we go, but I wanted to get that plug in. So we should probably round things up a little bit. And so Steve, your first time here. Thank you very much. You by default get to plug something. Have you got something to plug or something that you want to tell us about before you vanish for the week?
Well, I am doing a vocal session straight after here with an artist called Molly. I'll put a bit more information about her up on Twitter, but she's really good. And yeah, we're finishing off some songs, hopefully for release, I would imagine, before Christmas.
Excellent. And will people find all that stuff on stevehillier.net, or is it
best to go to Twitter for that? I'll be tweeting that, but eventually we'll end up there as well. Yeah.
Okay. Brilliant. Thank you very much, Steve. It's been a pleasure having you aboard. And please do join us again. I'll stick you on the distribution list, so jump in, or if you've got any topics you want to throw in there, then please do. And lovely to have you. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And also, Gaz, thank you for joining us as well, and your Stylophone preview, which we should have some sort of review up sometime in the not too distant future. So thank you very much.
Yeah, cool.
And you got anything you want to plug?
I did see something has just been announced to do with Native Instruments, like literally just now. I don't know if you can put the thing up.
I don't know. You see.
That's something reasonably interesting.
Instruments.com. Let's have a look. I'm seeing Symphony Series Percussion.
Oh, okay.
Nothing here at the moment.
All right. Perhaps that was
not yet. No.
Okay.
Not that I can see. So maybe it's just lagging behind.
Andersons have sort of well, Andersons have put it out there, so we can say if they've put it out, can't we?
I don't know. Let me just check. I think safe to say maybe wait until tomorrow for the absolute on that. I would hate to be the one. But
okay, but there's something pretty big coming from Native Instruments, which is quite exciting. And also, yeah, I mean, I'm going to get stuck into Stylophone land now. So, yeah, I'm going to see if I can make a tune up using only the Stylophone. That's a little plan I'm setting. And I'm going to try and make it dark and somber and not at all bleepy. That's my challenge.
No, that's the kind of challenge I'm sure you'll be able to rise to. Thank you very much for joining us, Gaz. Been a pleasure. Also, Mr. Charles Chicky Reeves, thank you for joining us too. Nice to have you back in the country, and hopefully we'll have you on again. What's next for you? Have you got a session?
I'm just working on the new Chicky and Coco record.
Yes, of course.
So
where can people find Sublime-UK?
I think actually chickyandcoco.com.
Chicky and Coco.
There's actually a domain for it. Easy.
Of course.
chickyandcoco.com. Very easy.
Thank you very much.
But yeah, I should be finished mastering that in the next couple of days, and then I'm going to pop it online. Then I'll make a vinyl version, and there you go.
Oh, vinyl version, nice. And also, Mr. Dave Spears, thank you for joining us too. It's been a pleasure having you. And nice to see you've got the light not in front of you. So your monitor, you can use your monitor. You don't have to shut the curtains. You've got some daylight and you can still see the screen.
Yeah.
Finally.
It's so weird. Yeah, I moved the room around because it was like I had the windows there, and it's an amazing view and beautiful and all the rest of it. But I just found that I was just having the blinds down the whole time because my monitor was. And then occasionally I'd look around and go, "Oh, it's a nice view," and then get back up on my work. So now what I've got is the JD800 and the cat and the various things, so that I can actually look out, see the view, and play. That might lead to a little bit of inspiration at some point.
Excellent. Well, it's lovely to have you as ever. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching. That's it for this week. I will say goodbye. Don't forget to subscribe, buy a T-shirt or a WaveJunction or any of those things, and do check out our guests' websites. There'll be more information in the show notes. That's it. See you next time.